Before we get into the meat of today's episode, have a look at this viaduct. This is the Frith Viaduct. In a video I made a while ago, but I've not made public yet, I said I went past this and I missed it and I was gutted. So I've gone back before I've told you guys I missed it. How you doing, mate?
Not too bad.
Nice to see you.
That was a rude warm-up.
Yeah, I did feel a bit bad saying a couple of meters at the top.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for suggesting this. Nice.
Nice, okay, mate.
Beautiful bike.
Hope we don't hold you up too much.
Oh no, not at all. Not at all. So it's my pleasure to introduce Chris Taylor, Burrito Titan, and a ride partner for me and my dad on this particular ride. Chris is from relatively near me in the northwest of England, but also his parents live near Llangollen, so he said on this day that was meant to be quite sunny, turned out to be actually quite dreary all day. Do you fancy meeting up? He'll go to his parents and we'll meet up and go for a ride around the Dee Valley. And you know me, if I hear ride around the Dee Valley, I say yes before I've thought about anything logistical. This ended up being far too long of a ride because of meeting Chris, doing a nice loop and then going, oh, we've got to get home from here. But it was worth every second. I've never actually met Chris in person. We've raced together on Zwift plenty. We've chatted shit together on Discord for years. So it was really nice to meet in person, and just like meeting all the other Burrito Titans, it was just like, immediately comfortable chatting to your mate and having a nice time riding together. I hope it was the same for Chris. I hope he wasn't thinking, God, this guy's a prick in person. You may be able to see that Chris is riding an absolutely stunning bike, like beautiful. The paintwork is my absolute dream paintwork. It's a Colnago V3 RS rim brake, amazing bike, amazing scenery around here. I know I've hammered this a million times. This is the panorama walk just out of Llangollen. I think it looks magnificent all around you. And then all these shots of Chris on a bike that would be one of my dream bikes, all-time dream bikes, along with a Colnago C64 as well. I love Colnagos, I think they look incredible. And when we were around chatting, fortunately you can't hear any of it because my rear camera is so noisy with like seat post vibrations. You can't hear any of our chat about... I think at this point we were talking about Phil Lovett had just done his Ronde van Vlaanderen Sportief and how incredible that is, having broken his back last year. Generally, just having a nice chat. And this is the climb that I got David Raynham to say, bloody hell, on. And I can't drop Chris on it. It's a running joke that I made David look like a mug by only picking a shot so that he was 3 pixels in the very background on, which I don't think I did, but I've received a lot of stick for over the last year. And yeah, so I wanted to do the same to Chris, obviously. I wanted you to only see him as a speck on my camera, miles behind me, meet up with your friends and drop them. But I've only done that to my dad here, not Chris. Chris, having none of it, wouldn't let me do any of that. And here we go, my dad and Chris, next to the chain bridge. You know I love this bridge. And as I turn under the railway arches, you'll see behind me the climb that I did up to the ladder, and I think this perspective in my rear camera, kind of directly above Chris's head in a sec, of the road off the A5, it really does look like a wall there, doesn't it? Just straight up the mountain. You may not realise what I'm talking about because I know what I'm looking for, but I think it looks sensational. We decided not to go up there today, but I asked my dad if we could check out the start of the climb that he did instead. So here we are on that climb that my dad did instead of me, instead of the ladder with me. The surface, horrible, but the climb, much nicer, much steadier, never too steep. And it meant that we were all kind of going comfortably hard here. Like, we were all pushing pretty hard, but it was never so steep that we ended up separated. You can see how crappy the surface is, but par for the course on Welsh lanes, isn't it? A nice bit of fun, not a problem at all to have that sort of issue. Then we just dropped back down to Llangollen. We didn't do the whole climb because we're about to do something much nastier. We regrouped in a new build area, and then we're about to do Bache climb, which is a different way up this really hard hill. As soon as we turned the corner onto it, Chris made a running joke in the Titans. I'm not closing that, as I did my hill effort. Sorry, I haven't told you any of the stats, and I don't know them off the top of my head, so you can always go back and look at the profile of this climb. But it's steep. I think it's like 2.8k at around 10%, but there's lots of properly steep bits in it. And I really wanted to do a hard effort up there, and I left my dad and Chris to do whatever pace they wanted. They can chat as they go up. Fine. Partly I'm showing off. In hindsight, very willing to admit that meet up with a mate for the first time and there's a little bit of willy wagging testosterone flowing, isn't there? And I'm not proud of that, but let's be honest, that's what was going on here. And I want to include this climb in full from my rear view camera with my front view as the picture-in-picture, but I'm going to speed it up because it's too long. And now might be a good time to mention, if you didn't know already, that my dad got an e-bike. So he decided that being dropped wasn't going to be much fun for him and decided to come and pull my pants down, absolutely humiliate me, make me feel like a child again. Thank you, Father. Bache got very steep here, coming out of the village of Bache. And then you take this right turn onto, I want to say the main road, onto the main climb that's definitely not a main road, where it stays consistently steep for quite a long time. Luckily, I now had a carrot to chase because my dad has left me for dead. Absolutely demolished me here. So I had something to chase. And it really benefited me, actually, to keep my power high. Joking aside for a sec, I think I should say that my dad's a strong cyclist. He's a mid to high B cat on Zwift when he's in decent form, which at 61 is properly strong. For anyone that's strong, if you were to go on an average club ride, he'd be one of the strongest riders, in my opinion. And if you were to go on an average club, hard training ride, he'd happily be able to sit in. So, although I'll take the piss about him having an e-bike, the only reason for it is so that we close the gap between us on these climbs. It just levels the playing field, and then for the rest of the ride, he can push really hard. And to show that e-bikes aren't cheating at all, he actually got a new FTP calculation as a result of this ride, and that's because having that motor just frees you up to push yourself even harder, knowing that, well, okay, I've got a 20% climb coming up, but I'll have that little bit of help, and I don't need to save stuff for it. So I just wanted to do that serious bit of why my dad having an e-bike actually has really helped us on this ride, and is anything but cheating. He's not quite burying himself here to drop me, but he's working hard. There was a point on this really steep bit of climb where he said, it's too easy in that setting. And I thought, too easy? Are you having a laugh? I'm pretty consistently staying at 370 to 390 watts on this steep bit. That's like 5.7, 5.8 watts per kilo. That is beyond what I think I'm capable of holding. And Dad's going, I better have a bit less assistance because I'm not finding this very hard. This climb is lovely. It's challenging. It's really, really hard. Okay, and it runs parallel to Nant. If you remember me doing that, or if you're one of the lucky people that's done Nant yourself, it is not as hard as that, but it's not far off, I would say. In my opinion, it's more interesting. Nant is just so steep. It tears your face off and there's nothing you can do about it. This has a few kind of peaks and troughs in the gradient. There's some really, really steep, hard bits. There's some slightly easier bits where you can recover a little bit or you can choose to push on. And generally, I thought it was a great climb. I really enjoyed it. I found it incredibly tough seeing my dad ahead of me and knowing that I had his wheel to chase. Also thinking, Chris is behind me and I don't want to be 200 metres, Dad, all the way. Sorry, I don't want to be that idiot who's shot off and then blows up and gets caught. That was just me shouting encouragement to my dad, even though this isn't an e-bike section on Strava. I can't turn it off, it's just what I think. I wanted him to push himself to the line, obviously. But also, I wanted to push myself to the line. I know when it flattens off, I've then got an advantage on him. And suddenly I feel like this isn't mean-spirited again. This is genuine racing. I'm delighted to tell you that I'm third on that segment now, and my power profile looked great as a result of chasing my dad. Now, I'm only third on that segment because there's 2 ways you can approach the first 1 kilometre, and Giles Drake didn't do the approach I did. So, being upfront about that. And unfortunately, this tractor gave Chris a very hard time. You saw how narrow that road was, and it just threw him into a hedge in order to avoid it. So, my mate did have a rough time on that climb. We just done Fron, Bache, which, I don't know, means a little something. But it comes up from Llangollen. It's an alternative to Allgwyn, and it's definitely as steep in parts, but it's never so relentless. But it's long. I did it in 12 something. I was exactly 1 minute down on the KOM. Very happy with that. We're with Chris Taylor of Burrito Titans fame, who I'm gonna pop down and find in a minute because it's mean that we've left him alone, but also I need to catch my breath. My dad's got an e-bike.
Yay!
Brand new. You enjoying it?
Loving it. It's nice to get to the top of the hill first.
Yeah, it was nice to have a wheel to hang on to as well. Sorry, can you tell me as concisely as you like what you thought of it on your e-bike and pacing?
The current default settings are 80 watts, 160 watts, 240 watts. So the 3 settings it'll do. I used 240 to bridge after I'd sat with Chris for a little while, and you had about 100 metres on us.
Yeah.
And it was a doddle. I just flew through. The 240 was far too high to be getting anything out of the ride, to ride with you, so I dropped it back down to 160. And at 160, I was working hard, but I had a bit more to give if you needed to push. So
yeah.
It looks like a good setting for pace setting up any climbs we do.
Can I check? I assume you weren't full gas, because there were times when I was closing on you again, and then I'd lose it, and I assumed you're just like, 90%ing or whatever.
I was riding at the pace to maintain a gap between me and you.
Yeah, okay.
So I was comfortable for most of that climb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God. That's all right. Okay.
I say comfortable at 220 watts.
Yeah, like
Threshold level.
Yes. Yeah. That first 10 minutes of your 20-minute threshold interval where you think this is sustainable before it starts hurting.
This is hurting.
Yeah. So yeah, that was hard. I'm going to go and find Chris now because, feel bad for abandoning the guy. I actually got some footage on my phone of Chris completing this climb, but it's absolutely crap. So here's my bike in a bush instead. Chris had 2 mechanicals up there. No. There was something wrong with his free hub. I can't remember what the other issue was. But yeah, he had to stop at the top and deal with it. He had to stop on the way up as well and deal with it. So would be unfair to show his time on that climb. It's not representative of how strong a cyclist he is. And he is seriously strong. He's merrily dropped me on a Thursday night TTT a few times because his raw wattages are so strong and his watts per kg are very impressive as well. Now we're just at the top of that ridge line between Llangollen and Glen Ceiriog, and we're about to drop down into Glen Ceiriog itself, which is a tiny little village that's overrepresented in local cycling because it's got this absolute monster of a climb called Church Hill out of it. Unfortunately, we're going to go down Church Hill, and it's just at this point that I said to Chris, if you look to your right, it looks like you fall off the face of the earth, doesn't it? And he laughed, and I said, that's where we're going. So we dropped down Church Hill, and it's worth mentioning that Chris got a few other bikes, mountain bike among others, but I think all of his other bikes are disc brake, so he's built up this rim brake frame, and is just worried about the descent. Never mind that it's like minus 30% at certain points, and Chris isn't like heavy, but he's heavier than me, and I assume if you got, I don't know, 5 or 10 kilos extra, you plummet that much faster down a descent. It's just scary when you don't know what's coming. It was scary for me knowing what was coming, so he goes well out the back on all of these descents, because frankly they are horrible. They're really rough descents in this area, and unfortunately this is the moment that he tells us he's punctured down there. is occupational hazard of these really steep hills. Like I say, when we descended Nant the first time, Dad's front tyre blew out, didn't it? Because the heat deformed the rim. It was tubeless, so it just unseated.
Well, that's it. I was sort of backing off where I could.
Yeah.
Because I'm picking up speed.
Yeah.
You just plummet, don't you, as soon as you let go of the...
Did take us a little while to finish. I think Chris felt quite bad, took a while to fix. But we got on the road again, and almost immediately my dad was shouting, "Stop!" Waving his mudguard in hand because it had fallen off. It wasn't a big deal, but it was just like, oh, we just got rolling. Then, rolling out of Dee and Ceiriog, it's proper agricultural here. And we turned this corner, getting ready for our second big climb of the day. Well, me and Dad had done a few big climbs on our way to meet Chris, but not fast, so it didn't matter. So, we're about to turn onto Nant, which has two lovely switchbacks on it. You can see it's 2k and 244 metres of elevation, so that's like 11.5% average gradient. I was amazed we met a car coming up it. It's rubbish, this road surface. And once again, I want to show you the climb in full, so I've done it 3 times speed, so you're not here all day. This road surface is tarmac. I'm happy to say this is a tarmac road, but it's more pothole than road in places at the beginning. And of course, my dad has disappeared again. I think on this climb, you'll see much more that Chris is not just like 10 million miles out the back, like happened on Fron Bache, because he's not had mechanicals all the way. So I feel less bad that I turn around, get to the top and see he's coming as well. This first bit I was starting to think, wow, I've really made a mistake coming up here. I'd never done this climb before, and it's pretty uninspiring. Although there is one moment where there's 3 signs in a row saying, if you are a long vehicle, turn around now. Then it says, long vehicles can't come up here. And then the final one says, last chance, long vehicles do not come this way. And as you know, if I see a sign that says motor vehicles can't get up a climb, I just think, that's the climb for me. Yeah, I am in for that climb. And we approach the first of the hairpins up here. I'm absolutely delighted to be going around these hairpins. Very exciting feature. You don't get too many hairpins in the UK, so every time I see one on a climb, I love it. The drawback of this hairpin is that I could see my dad, and then I turn the hairpin, and he's absolutely disappeared. He's just about on the horizon, if you see him out there. And I have this mental battle of, my legs are pretty tired. I should have said, on Fron Bache, I set a 8 to 12 minute power PB ever for me, which is brilliant. And I was thinking, maybe I'll just spin here. And I thought, nah, try and chase an e-bike, see what you can do. So I had a full-on push. Gradient's not so steep. I thought maybe I can get something out of this. I turned the second hairpin, and there's father. I'm under no illusions, alright? Dad's not combining his motor and his legs. He's not going full gas with those two things. But still, to just even catch him is good. And he said at the end of this that basically what he was doing was just trying to be ahead of me, but not so far ahead that I couldn't see him. Give me a wheel to chase, give me a light to chase, and it really did work. It really did help. You can see how high my power is later on. I just spiked my power there in order to try and close that gap to get some speed up, because I was thinking, just do your best, just push yourself to your limit here and see what you can achieve. Who knows what will come out of it. It helps that this week, by the way, I'd put my bottom bracket in properly and it wasn't just flexing all over the place. It really does help. It's amazing what having a stiff bottom bracket can do for your power output. So yeah, that did help. The road surface got a bit nicer towards the top as well, fortunately. And as such, I'm now 7th on the leaderboard for Nant, which isn't great, but still, that was 10 minutes at 365 watts, is that? Something like that. Look at that flat power pacing for the second climb of the day in pretty quick succession. I'm really delighted with that. So, yeah, once again, I'm evangelical about e-bikes very, very quickly.
Those switchbacks were nice, weren't they?
Yeah.
Nice one, mate. Just up to the junction.
So there's Chris finishing. Really not far at all. And pretty much now, all we had to do was ride along the ridge line here, above Llangollen, above the Dee Valley and Dee and Ceiriog, and drop down Urrocha, which I rode a couple of weeks ago. I messed up the upload of that video, by the way, and it seems like very few people saw it, which I don't really care about. I make my videos for me, but it's a shame that I uploaded it at like 4 AM with no title and no thumbnail and no content, so YouTube algorithm just thought like, this is nonsense and I won't promote it to anyone. As again, I say, absolute amateur. I don't think Chris enjoyed this descent. Sorry if I'm putting words in your mouth, mate, but I think it was pretty hairy, and because it's like the side of the mountain, feeling uncomfortable on your brakes down it is really rough. On the bright side, we're just approaching Pontcysyllte, UNESCO World Heritage Site bridge that you can see behind Chris there, that we can see from another bridge. Fantastic. One of the best features of the Dee Valley. And this is where our time with Chris came to an end for this ride. Well, you just climb up the other side, back into Trevor. Then obviously my dad and I had to get home, and I had suggested we just go straight over the way we came out, but there's no cafes, there's no nothing that way, and I totally messed up my fueling and bonked. So I'll leave it here. Thank you very much for watching, guys.
The way we came out doesn't.
Yeah.
Nip and get some, see what my mum and dad have got.
No.
We drop down into Llangollen and go there.
Right there today, mate. It's just been shit.
Yeah, just that's what happens. Yeah, no problem.
Slow on the ups and the freaking downs today, unfortunately.
Yeah, we'll ride down there then. Just let us know.